Good evening. Hello and welcome to a very special episode of Friends in Fiction. I am Ron Block from the Cuyahoga County Public Library. I'm a host also of the Friends in Fiction Writers Block podcast. And with me here tonight is Meg Walker, who is the managing director and official cat herder for Friends in Fiction.
Yep, that's me. Hi, everybody.
Hey, everybody. So for this week's show, we have some special guests. We're live streaming on the U.S. Book Show platform, digital platform, as well as our usual places as part of the show's library track. So welcome to everybody who's tuning in from everywhere. It's awesome to see you all. So what we've done is we've invited Andrew Richard Albanese from Publishers Weekly to join us for a little pre-show tonight. Andrew is a senior writer at Publishers Weekly and the organizer of the Libraries Are Essential conference at the U.S. Book Show. So Andrew, welcome and tell us all about the U.S. Book Show.
Hey, Ron and Meg, thank you so much for having us on and for doing this. So we're really excited to have Friends in Fiction be part of the U.S. Book Show and a part of the library track. The U.S. Book Show is an online event that we at Publishers Weekly started last year after the industry's major trade show, which was Book Expo America, which usually drew 17,000 publishers and authors and booksellers and librarians to the Javits Center in New York. Well, it closed for good in the wake of the pandemic. And so we started the U.S. Book Show as an online event to really sort of pick up the slack there. And it's really all about featuring authors and forthcoming books. We host buzz panels and editor talks and tons of author talks, all with an eye to building buzz for new books coming out in the fall, and also to talk about some of the issues that are impacting authors and readers and publishers and booksellers and, of course, libraries. Which is really why I wanted to feature the Friends in Fiction group at this year's U.S. Book Show, because I wanted to highlight, and talk about this incredible community that these four best-selling authors, Mary Kay and Kristin and Kristy and Patty have formed. I mean, there were some tough times over the last 2 years, and this is really one of the uplifting stories, I think, to come out of the pandemic. So I really wanted to showcase this amazing community to the U.S. Book Show audience. And since you already had a Friends in Fiction show set to run during the U.S. Book Show, well, perfect. So that works. Right. And I really want to thank you both personally for having me on and for, being a part of the U.S. Book Show.
Oh my God, this is such a thrill for all of us. Yeah.
Now, also, I should say that for the U.S. Book Show attendees that are here who may not exactly know what the Friends in Fiction gathering is or haven't had the joy of participating in one, I thought maybe I could start by asking, you, Ron, and Meg a couple of questions, and you could talk a little bit about the group.
Sure. Love that.
So first and foremost, we did a story at Publishers Weekly last year. It was in November, I believe. It was about the 100th episode of the Friends in Fiction group. And, talk a little bit about how this all got started and what it says that you're still going 100 and whatever episodes later and going stronger, in fact. And where you might be another 100 shows from now. Ron, Meg, who wants to start?
I'm going to let Meg, because she was in on this from the very, very beginning.
I'll start. So I'm being told we're having some technical difficulties. We are just now live. So I think we missed a little bit of our preamble on Facebook. So just to rephrase, we are broadcasting live tonight with the U.S. Book Show. We have Andrew Albanese here from Publishers Weekly. So I'm Meg Walker. I'm the managing director of Friends in Fiction. And Ron Block, the host of the Writers Block podcast, is here. And we're doing a little bit of a 10, 15-minute preview before the actual Friends in Fiction show goes live tonight. Just sort of introducing what Friends in Fiction is to the audience at the U.S. Book Show. So Andrew just was asking us how Friends in Fiction got its start. Andrew, of course, is pretty well versed in Friends in Fiction, having written a really incredible feature on the crew in November. But so just basically we started Mary Kay Andrews, Patty Callahan Henry, Kristin Harmel, and Kristy Whitson Harvey back in April of 2020, all had, along with Mary Alice Monroe, who was part of our group at the time, had new books coming out and were panicked like every other author about how to get the word out. Tours were canceled, bookstores were closing. They were nervous about their own books, of course, but also those by their friends and colleagues, those by debut authors who no one had ever heard of, and independent bookstores who were shutting their doors and dealing with an unprecedented situation. So they got on a Zoom on a Friday night with some rosé and started talking about some ideas about what to do. And out of that one meeting, Friends in Fiction was sort of born. They decided to say, next time we do this, why don't we take it live and let people in on the conversation? And so it really just snowballed from there. And it's really become a true online community and a hub for book lovers. All through the pandemic, we had thousands of people tuning in week after week as we welcomed author guests. And it really fed this need that people had for community,
Yes.
first of all.
Good
and
word.
to find other people to connect with, to talk about books. More and more and more people were reading, thankfully. But the missing piece of that is getting together with other book lovers and talking about books you've enjoyed together. So we didn't know, no one knew at the time that we were providing this sort of outlet for everybody.
Yeah, and 100 episodes plus later, right, Ron? And you're still
Yes.
going.
They're still going. And I began as I'm friends with all of them. So I started just being supportive and things. And as time went on, they kind of drew me in. But it's like Meg said, it's just such an incredible community, and it's still going on. And I think it was originally for 6 weeks they were going to do it and thinking pandemic's over, we're going to flatten the curve. Well, of course, that didn't happen. So it just kept going, and the numbers kept growing, and they soon added all of these rock star authors on, and people tuned in and formed friendships, and the community built. And so I think that another 100 is probably in the works.
Well, what I've marveled at is, from my position as a senior writer of Publishers Weekly and watching this, is exactly that, the community aspect of this, because it really is such a special connection that these authors have forged with their readers. I mean, it's not just book promotion. It's not just about reaching out to people. It's a real bond. We think of writers as writing as being some solitary, lonesome activity and some mysterious alchemy that happens behind the books.
Right.
And that's true for some, but here we see this really exceptional two-way bond between these authors and these readers. So, talk a little bit about that. What do the authors get from the group, and what do the readers get from the group? Why does it all just work so well?
I think it has worked so well because in the beginning, we've worked really hard to establish Friends in Fiction, especially the Facebook group. So Friends in Fiction is a web show. It's a podcast. It's a Facebook community. It's an Instagram feed. We have a newsletter. So we're sort of, a dessert topping and a floor wax. We're a little bit of everything. I think the community is really the most important aspect. And we have emphasized kindness from the start, and we all exchanges on the Facebook page, we really try to make sure people are being kind. And I think it was a real respite for people. It was a soft place to fall. It was a place to come to get away from the noise, to get away from the horrible news that everybody was hearing day to day. And that piece of it has continued. And I think it's honestly what has made it such a beautiful, thriving thing. And I mean, as far as it is a two-way street. So I think the community has gotten a lot, obviously, out of the content that we're producing, the shows, the interviews, learning about new books, meeting new authors, of course. But the host authors have gotten a lot out of being a part of this community as well. In fact, just being friends with each other and talking to each other as much as they do, and growing this amazing thing, I think they've all sort of blossomed into, they've taken on more ambitious writing projects. They've made changes in their careers. They've written different kinds of books. They've written more than one book in a year, things that they hadn't done in the past, that this group, the insular group of the four of them, and the wider community of Friends of Fiction as a whole, has really just inspired all of that.
That's true. And they I think that the people that watch every week just feed them and help elevate them. But what we've also seen is friendships forming among the people that watch the show. So not only do they feel like they're friends with the authors, but they actually are friends with each other. So now that we're doing some live events, they're gathering and meeting each other there and hanging out and having dinner. And then there's just, it's so great to see happy people all in one place, and everybody's happy.
One of the great aspects of the group too is you mentioned kindness, and one of the things that the show does is you highlight indie booksellers, which is so crucial because during the pandemic lockdowns, it was just devastating for indie booksellers. And as we know, indie booksellers are not just places to buy books. They're not just stores. They're anchors in their communities, much like libraries. So, I mean, how did that come about? And also, Ron, you're a librarian. So I understand we'll be talking a little bit about libraries tonight.
Yes, I think that one of the things that this group has done is they've really brought in the importance of libraries. It's almost like a Venn diagram of the authors and libraries and bookstores, and how their commonality is the readers and it's the community. So people can get their reading done through all three ways.
Yeah, I mean, I think the impetus behind the whole thing in the beginning was to support indies, and that's super important, and it continues to be. And each week in the beginning, we used to highlight at one individual bookstore week by week, and they'd offer discounts and things like that. And we've since sort of shifted that, and we work mostly with bookshop.org, and we have a really big Friends in Fiction shop within Bookshop, and we try to get everyone to shop there just because it's an easy way for a one-click way to shop small and shop local while still staying at home.
Right.
But the four Friends in Fiction hosts are committed to supporting indies end-to-end libraries as much as they possibly can. And we've worked hand in hand with several independent bookstores. We've done subscription boxes with Oxford Exchange, with Nantucket Book Partners, and we've got a project coming up with Booktown at the Jersey Shore. We have a merch store that we run through Oxford Exchange. So we're definitely always trying to send the love to indies as much as we can, because we really do see them as the cultural nerve center of their communities.
Yes.
And lots of fellow authors too. Two great guests tonight on the program scheduled. Really exciting.
Tonight we can't wait to have Tia Williams, who wrote 7 Days in June, and TJ Newman, the author of Falling. They're both on. We're doing a split show, so Tia will be on first, and then TJ on the second half. We've got an amazing lineup coming up for the rest of the summer too. Go ahead.
I was just going to say it's so inspiring and it's so wonderful. And I noticed, Ron, this online group is it's doing live events now too, right?
Yes.
You're sort of reversing the hybrid here. You're going from, online to the real world as opposed to what we did in the pandemic where we all had to go online. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, I think of it like as in the olden days when you used to listen to an album and then you'd go to see the band in concert and something, and you'd still have both in your life. So this is kind of what it is when we go there, and people travel from so far to come and get together. When we had the event in Cleveland, they came from Michigan and DC and Pittsburgh and Indiana and Kentucky, and this is just shows the strength of the community that's been built. And I think that these live events are amazing for the authors, amazing for me. They get to have me along, and I get to meet people that I've only been friends with on Facebook. And it's just going to continue to grow.
Yeah, same here. I mean, we've done a few of these live events and they've been fantastic. I think I see it the same way Ron does. We're taking the show on the road, so to speak. So we have one more coming up at the end of the summer, July 21st in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware. So I think it's a really great way for people to meet in the flesh, to see the four hosts interact in person, and to see how real that chemistry is between them. And for the community members to meet each other for the first time. Ron and I have been at a few of these events where we've seen people who we've come to think of as close friends because we see them interacting online all the time, and you don't realize, they've actually never met in person before. So yeah, I mean, it is definitely a reversal of the model, but I see both continuing on into the future. Definitely the web show and podcast and the online community aren't going anywhere, and we'd love to continue doing the live events as long as people want to come to them.
Absolutely.
Well, this has been really wonderful. Thank you for inviting me to join prior to tonight's show, and thank you for being a part of the U.S. Book Show this year, and have a great show tonight.
Yes. Thank you so much, Andrew.
Thanks for having us. I hope everyone enjoys the show.
Enjoy the show.
Welcome to Friends and Fiction. 4 New York Times bestselling authors, endless stories. Novelists Mary Kay Andrews, Kristin Harmel, Kristy Woodson Harvey, and Patty Callahan Henry are 4 longtime friends with more than 70 published books between them. Together, they host Friends and Fiction, with author interviews and fascinating insider talk about publishing and writing, to highlight and support independent bookstores. They discuss the books they've written, the books they're reading now, and the art of storytelling. If you love books and you're curious about the writing world, you're in the right place. Hello. It is Wednesday night, and that means we are right here with you for Friends and Fiction. We have an amazing evening ahead of us, so let's get started. I'm Kristin Harmel.
I'm Kristy Woodson Harvey.
And Patty's muted.
And I am the tech-savvy one. I am Patty Callahan Henry. I'm like, why isn't Mary Kay introducing herself? I'm Patty Callahan Henry.
I'm Mary Kay Andrews.
And this is Friends and Fiction. Millions of tech problems, 4 New York Times bestselling authors, endless stories to support independent bookstores, authors, and librarians. Tonight we'll be talking with best-selling authors Tia Williams and TJ Newman, both of whom had huge hit books in 2021 that are brand new in paperback right now.
We'll also be talking in the after show about the upcoming 2023 books by the 4 of us, so make sure to stick around for that. But before we get rolling, we have to raise a glass to Mary Kay Andrews for staying on the New York Times bestseller list for the 3rd week in a row with her filmmakers.
Cheers.
Mary Kay.
My husband apparently fell down on the job. He was my steward. I don't know.
Come on, Mr. MKA. Where's the champagne?
Where's the sommelier?
Come on.
The sommelier.
Exactly.
The sommelier.
So we'd also like to give a special welcome tonight to those of you attending the U.S. Book Show, especially our librarian and bookseller friends and our friends at Publishers Weekly who put the show together. We talk a lot on Friends and Fiction about how important independent booksellers are to us as authors and as readers. Because when we started Friends and Fiction at the beginning of the pandemic, one of our main concerns was for indie booksellers who'd had to close their doors. But just as important in our development as readers and writers are libraries and librarians.
And that's just one of the many reasons why, when we were thinking, who can we partner with for our podcast? We had a Friends and Fiction podcast that was separate than the show, and we wanted to grow it. So we asked Ron Block, a librarian who you just met, and branch manager for the Cuyahoga County Public Library System. I'm going to say that fast. The Cuyahoga County Public Library System, one of the number one systems in the country in Ohio, to join us. Ron, like so many librarians across the country, has a very deep passion for books and has his finger on the pulse of what readers are reading. And of course, now he's the host of our Friends and Fiction Writer's Block. Get it? Ron Block, Writer's Block podcast. Thank you to MKA. And it features a new episode every single Friday. And the way it's different than the show is that we don't just talk fiction on there. We talk to anybody that has to do with publishing, writing, other librarians, songwriters, behind the scenes librarians, booksellers, editors, agents. So anything to do with this magical world shows up on our podcast on Fridays.
Yeah, and I know we all have such fond memories of libraries growing up.
Yeah, I can remember my mother herding all 5 of her children, including me, onto the bookmobile when it made its monthly stop at the shopping center near our house. We didn't have a lot of money for books, but after the 6 of us, including my mom, checked out the maximum number of books allowed, the tires on that old bookmobile rose by a couple of inches.
Oh.
I love
My
it.
gosh, I have the best memories of the library. We used to go every single week, and I remember being in the 4th grade, which is funny because that's how old my son is now. But I was like in the stacks, and we were kind of in a hurry, and I was looking for a book to take on vacation, and we were going to be gone for a few days, and I just wanted to take one book, so I was looking for a big one. And I remember seeing a spine that said "A Tree Grows in Brooklyn," and I remember consciously thinking, a book about a tree? Like, how is it that big? It seems kind of boring, but like, okay, whatever. Like, I'll try it. And of course, A Tree Grows in Brooklyn is like my all-time favorite book. I think I've read it every year since. But I was the same age as Francie Nolan in that book the first time that I read it. And we were these little girls from totally, totally different worlds and totally different time periods. But we were thinking about the same things and wondering about the same things about our lives. And I think all these years later, I can look back and realize that that's when I really learned the power of story and how it connects us through time and space and makes us understand worlds that we'll never be a part of.
Yeah.
I remember being in middle school, being a new kid for the 4th year in a row, and not knowing what to do with myself during lunch hour or free period, and hiding in the library because the library was my sanctuary.
Yeah.
And in many ways it still is. And of course, I remember the summers spent checking out the max number of books and carrying home that bag of possibilities with me.
Oh, bag of possibilities.
Possibilities.
I love that. That's so true. So, libraries are so much more than places to find books. They're places to gather, to access local services, to vote, to connect to the internet, and to find community. So to all of you librarians out there tonight, especially to our very own Ron Block, thank you from the bottom of our hearts.
Yeah, thank you.
And we'll be talking to Tia and TJ about their love of libraries too. In the meantime, I know you heard a little bit at the front end, but have you heard about the 4 of us being, well, actually it's the 6 of us because Meg and Ron are with us. We are on the road together. We had the most amazing time on the Jersey Shore last week.
So amazing.
And we got to meet so many of you. We would hear your name. We'd be like, I know you, but we had never met in person. And we have one event left this season, a final chance to see us all together this summer. We are having a luncheon event on July 21st in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware. We really hope if you're anywhere near or far that you can join us on the road for this big Friends in Fiction live celebration.
And don't forget now, as you know, we continue to encourage you to support indie booksellers when and where you can. And one way to do that is to visit our own friendsandfictionbookshop.org page, where you can find Tia's books, TJ's books, and books by the 4 of us and our past guests at a discount.
All right. Now I am so excited to get going because we have 2 great guests tonight. So let us welcome the first of our 2 guests, the amazing Tia Williams.
Tia began her career as a magazine beauty editor, working her way up the mastheads of several publications, including Elle, Glamour, and Essence. She also pioneered the beauty blog industry with her award-winning, long-running site, Shake Your Beauty. I love
it.
I love that. Her novel, The Perfect Find, won the African American Literary Award for Best Fiction in 2016. It also received rave reviews in the Washington Post, Essence, Cosmopolitan, and more. Gabrielle Union stars in the Netflix adaptation coming soon. I'm so envious.
That's awesome.
I know. I want to hate her, but I just can't.
I know.
She's too nice.
I know. Launched in June of last year, his latest novel, 7 Days in June, was a Reese Witherspoon book club pick and an instant New York Times bestseller. Tia currently works as an editorial director at Estee Lauder Companies, and she lives in Brooklyn with her husband and daughter. Sean, can you bring Tia in?
Tia! Hey! Oh, her hair is fabulous tonight.
I was going to say, she's so
having a great
pretty
hair
that it
day.
looked like it was her picture.
I know. It looked like it was cut out.
It's I'm actually talking on my phone and I'm like trying to prop it up because this was a last minute. I was on the computer and I'm not super techie and it wasn't connected, so we had some technical difficulties. So,
But your phone looks great.
if I disappear, it's because the phone
flipped over.
We'll just be like, she's still here. Give her a minute.
Right.
Exactly. Well, Tia, welcome. We are so happy to have you with us tonight. Can you start off by telling us about 7 Days in June, which is out in paperback in just 2 weeks?
Yeah. So 7 Days in June started with a question. So I was home one Saturday night, watching Romeo and Juliet with Leo and Claire Danes, as one does. And it's sort of one of my comfort movies. And I was just watching it. And for the first time, I had this thought that I'd never had before. I was like, what would have happened if Romeo and Juliet hadn't died at the end? What if they went their separate ways? Like they had this wild teenage lust-fueled, couple days together, went their separate ways, and then ran into each other again as like grown-ups, as 35-year-olds. Like, who would they still have that feeling? Would it still be so real? Would it just have been a teenage, a hormonal blip? And so that's where 7 Days in June was born. So it's the story of these two famous authors who seemingly randomly meet at a literary event, and sparks fly, but unbeknownst to everyone there, they actually know each other because 15 years before, when they were seniors in high school, they spent 7 very romantic days together. And so in the present, it takes place in 7 days in June in the present. And so it's like, how are they going to deal with each other and reckon with this big love they had as teenagers?
It's so good.
Wow. That's amazing. Okay, so we're going to start with the obvious. 7 Days in June, the sexual tension just ripples off the page. And you've said before, there's always going to be big love and big sex in my books. And no wonder you write those kinds of stories absolutely masterfully. But I've also read that you grew up reading Stephen King, and so did I. Whenever I have to give my top 5 books, I mention The Stand, and people are like, what? I'm like,
that's how I am with it. It's my favorite book of all time.
I'm like, if you haven't read The Stand, then you cannot talk to me about it, because I love reading. I don't read some of the worst horror, but I'm a big Stephen King fan. So
The
people
Stand is like the fiction standard. Like, it's genius.
Yes,
like the storytelling.
yes. Genius
I can't.
story. Yeah. Exactly. Okay. So people are always surprised to hear that about us. And he's not exactly known for his crackling sexual vibes. Can you talk a bit about how you found your way into writing these novels with big love and big sex, as you say? How did you go from those two to this?
Yeah, well, so Stephen King is my favorite author. And honestly, like, reading his books as an adolescent and, as I got older, it just teaches you everything you need to know about how to tell a tight, good story, period. It doesn't matter what genre you're working in. But I had it was like a dual obsession. So my mom was obsessed with romance novels. I grew up in the 80s, big paperback romance novel era. And she would keep this stack by the tub in my parents' bathroom. And it was always, the books were really fat because of the steam.
Oh, I love it.
Like from the tub. And me and my little sisters would sneak in there and read, like, at the most inappropriate ages. Like, we were reading Jude Devereaux and Kathleen Woodiwiss and,
wow.
And then like the contemporary romances too, like Jackie Collins and Judith Krantz and Harold Robbins. And, I was like, oh, you have to have sex in a story. Like, that's, obviously. And I don't know, like, something about those scenes. I don't know if I was a particularly horny adolescent. I don't know, but I was like, this is kind of amazing. And the skill, and I sort of became like a connoisseur of it. Like, I could tell when like a sex scene was written poorly. Meanwhile, like in 9th grade, and never had a boyfriend, never, and I'm just like, no, that doesn't ring true.
I just have to interrupt for a minute. Tia, I just have to interrupt and ask you if you have an all-time favorite, literally steamy sex scene from one of those novels so that I can go dog ear those pages.
Have you ever read Slow Heat in Heaven by Sandra Brown?
No.
But
Get
we
on
will.
it. Yeah. It changed
We
my
just
life.
lost everyone watching the show. They like all ran off to go get it.
We have 0 viewers now.
We have more to say. Everybody's on bookshop.org, downloading it.
That's
So
awesome.
good. Yeah.
Yeah, and to combine that with it, I'm just not, yeah.
That's awesome.
So I think that anytime we write novels, people look for us in the stories as the authors, especially people who know us in real life. And here's the thing, though. 7 Days in June is about a novelist who writes sexy books and lives in New York with her daughter, which is exactly what you are. Have people made assumptions that you're secretly writing about yourself, and has this complicated your life or people's expectations at all? Have they come to you about it?
Well, you know what's funny? The protagonist of 7 Days in June is so incredibly me that I forget that readers don't know me personally, so they don't know that there's so much about it that's my story. So I'll get one of the things about Eva is that she has these chronic, debilitating daily migraines. And so I'll get these DMs and I'll be like, wow, you really described migraines like so viscerally and so real. You must have had to do a lot of research. And I'm just like, girl, how much time do you have? Because I have had, it's me. I've had migraines since I was 9 years old, every single day.
Every day? Yeah, every day.
Every day.
Oh, wow.
Every day. Like different, it's at different levels of it, from manageable, like a manageable annoyance to hospital. But yeah, every day. And, it's okay. We all have something, right? But yeah, so there's so much of me in that character. When I first started writing 7 Days in June, I was single. I'd been a single mom for 10 years. Like Eva, amicable divorce. My daughter's father lived, I could see him from my window, from the apartment. We share custody. Chronic migraines, write sexy books, and hadn't been on a date in years. And I actually started writing the book. When I started, I was like, you know what? I am in such a slump. I don't feel creative. I don't feel sexy. I don't know who would ever love me because all I am is this vegetative person who's in pain all the time. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to invent a character who has all of my stuff and moves through it and finds love and happiness and everything. And don't you know that halfway through writing my manuscript, I swiped right on the person who is now my husband.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so there's something
amazing
for like manifestation.
Yeah.
Oh, manifesting through novel. I love it.
That's amazing.
It's kind of cool.
Yeah, we're gonna have to ask. We've got a list of shit we need you to manifest for us, Tia. Okay.
I think it only works if you do it yourself. Like, just you write it down and it'll happen.
Okay. All right. I'm okay with that. All right. Let's talk about your latest novel that we've just been talking about, 7 Days in June. It was a Reese Witherspoon book club pick and an instant New York Times bestseller. And I have totally messed up what I was supposed to ask you. So one moment. Okay, here we go. We're back on script. Now, we love the kind of book publishing stories that you have. Somebody who wasn't an overnight success and who, you've really earned it. 7 Days in June. Yes, it was a Reese pick and it catapults you to another level. But you tell us about the struggle you had with the previous book, The Perfect Find.
Yeah, it was definitely a struggle. So I wrote my first novel when I published it when I was 25. And then I wrote some YA novels, a nonfiction, and then I didn't write for a long time. And then came The Perfect Find. And when we were shopping it around in 2015, I was rejected by every single traditional publisher everywhere. And this is coming from, someone who's the beauty director at Glamour and Elle and like these, bylines for years. This is someone who'd already been traditionally published. And, you know, what was really sad is that, so The Perfect Find is about a fashion editor, a magazine fashion editor who loses her job and has to start over, and falls in love with a guy half her age. She's 40. And the feedback I kept getting was, oh, this is so fun. It's so sparkly. It's so sexy and cute. Is there any way you can work in sort of some sort of mention about how hard it is to be a Black woman in a white profession, fashion? Or maybe we should change the industry, because I don't know how believable it is to have the protagonist be a Black editor at a fashion magazine. And I'm like, you're looking at her.
Yeah.
Wow.
I did that. I am that. And
Yeah.
even if I wasn't, why can't we exist there? Like, you know? And it was just really, really frustrating and sad, because, you know, everything that you hear as a Black person about the industry, it's true. It was true. You know, it was very monochromatic, very gatekeepy, and Black stories needed to be presented in a very specific way, in a way that the publishers felt was most easily marketable. Stories about enslaved people, stories about civil rights, a lot of nonfiction, a lot of, you know, struggling against depression. And we are not symbols of oppression. So, and we deserve to you know, live in a delicious story just for the sake of living in a delicious story.
Yes.
So it really sucked. I finally found like a small, very small publisher. It was almost like self-publishing on my own. And and it ended up being a success. And I don't have Snapchat because I still don't know how to use it. I think it is so not intuitive. But someone sent me a screenshot of Gabrielle Union Snapchatting it on vacation, like she was reading it on vacation. I died, long story short. She's like, I love this. Let's make this a movie. And so that was the happy ending for The Perfect Find, which I didn't think would happen.
And
you
now
stuck with it. That's amazing. I mean,
and so now you're turning 7 Days in June into a TV series. Any can you tell us any secrets, Tia?
I would, but
we
I
won't
don't
tell
have any-
anyone else.
Oh yeah. I would, but there's nothing to tell yet because we're just now getting started on everything.
It's exciting though.
But yeah, it's really exciting. I've never worked on a TV show or anything like that, so this is all new. Very thrilling.
That's amazing.
Awesome.
I think we're all grinning because we all are like so happy
It's a great
for
source.
your success.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's the kind of stories we love to hear and we love to amplify.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I think if you really, I mean, it sounds so Pollyanna to be like, if you stick with it, it'll happen, because you're not guaranteed anything. And there certainly are no, you know, you don't get a trophy for trying.
No, you don't.
But I think that if, you know, you're a writer, you know when your stuff is good and you know when it sucks, right?
Yeah.
I knew this was good, and I knew that the feedback was unreasonable. And you know when you hear good feedback from your agent or an editor, and you work it in and it makes you better. And I knew that what they were telling me was bullshit.
Yep.
And so I just couldn't, in the name of like creative integrity, change
I love
what
that.
I had.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like there's just no way. And I knew it was good. And so I stuck with it. If I didn't know it was good, I would have given up, because it's devastating to get all those rejections.
Yeah.
Oh, it's the worst. Well, you wear a lot of hats. I mean, beyond you easily, I mean, you're a huge success in so many parts of your life that you easily could have just given up, because, you know, as we said, you're the editorial director at Estee Lauder. You've been a beauty editor for YM and Elle and Glamour and Lucky and Teen People and Essence. And you've written a lot of personal pieces for magazines, one that I want to ask you about in a minute. But I think we're all wondering, how do you juggle your other jobs with your role as a writer? And how do you think that your experience in the corporate beauty world has influenced your writing?
So to answer the first question, not well. I am not very good at balancing at all. And I have to tell the absolute truth because I feel like it would be anti-woman to pretend that it's easy, and it is not. It's not. But you know what? I think that I have not vetted this, through my therapist. This is truly me talking, so take it with a grain of salt. But
we are pretend psychotherapists, so it's
it's great. You've come to the right place.
Yes. This is circle of trust. So I feel like having this disability, this invisible disability that I've had my whole life, has given me something to fight against. It like gives me a chip on my shoulder. Like, I'm not going to let this, stop me or end me. And it's the kind of thing like with migraines, if you pack it all up and go to bed, you'll just be in bed for the rest of your life. I never would have done anything. So like you kind of have to keep going, putting one foot in front of the other, and having all this ambition and having these like stories just burning to get out, and having the security of a corporate career, but then also having this creative outlet. Like all of those things felt really necessary to keep me going. And but that's not to say that in any way do I balance it healthily at all. I mean, I barely slept in the past 3 days. My next manuscript is due on June 1st. I don't, I put on this cute shirt. You should see what's happening from the waist down. Like, it's a mess. It's a mess. But I feel like if something is that important to you, then you treat it the way you treat breathing air. Like you're uncompromising. You have to do it. You have to find the time, and it'll all come together.
Yeah.
I like uncompromising. I like that.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mentioned some of your personal pieces, but one of our favorites is a Mother's Day letter that you wrote to your daughter that was published in Glamour in 2016. And it was called An Open Letter to My 7-Year-Old Black Latina Daughter. I love reading stuff that you wrote back to you. Sorry, but just for everyone else, because everyone on the show hasn't read it. But in it, you write, you have a big personality, Lena. You're hilarious, opinionated, and wicked creative. Don't make yourself smaller to get the basketball star, the class president, or the badass musician. Be the basketball star, the class president, or the badass musician. It's such great advice, first of all. But second of all, I feel the echoes of that in your writing. And since we're all still works in progress, I'd love to ask you, do you feel like your books have the same kind of important message about not being afraid of who we are? And do you think that's an important message for adult women to hear?
Yeah. I mean, I think definitely. Why do I feel like I'm going to cry? That 7-year-old is 13 now. It's just
I was just thinking the same thing. How's it going with Lena?
She's good. She's back there like playing Roblox with her friends and like screaming. And I'm so nervous that you guys are going to hear her. But she inspired Audrey in 7 Days in June. I mean, that's my daughter. Yeah, I feel like, when I was growing up, I was definitely a weirdo. There's not a lot of like Black nerd representation or like Black weirdo representation. Like when I was born in 1975, like you had the Cosby Show where everyone was perfect. You had, like it just there wasn't a lot of us out there. So I always felt really weird. Like my interests were incredibly niche, and my sisters were even weirder than I was. Like, like my sister was like, "It's my 10th birthday. I want to have a science birthday party," and I got all these. But the thing is that my parents, every little thing that we were interested in, if it's Fosse this week, next week it's the Kennedy curse, then it's like just random. They would indulge everything that we were into, and it wasn't until I grew, I went to college and went away and met like a wider swath of people that I realized that was not a universal experience.
Yeah.
And also I feel like in a lot of Black families or families of color, like parents tend to push you towards what will just be a doctor or a lawyer, like whatever, just make some money. Like we don't have time for you to go figure out how to be a writer in New York. Like and my family wasn't like that. They were like, knock yourself out. You got straight A's. You earn, go follow your dreams. And I try to get that across in my books too. Like there are always Black people from all different walks of life, because we are not a monolith. Always New York, because I feel like it's such a fascinating place where you go to reinvent yourself and to become like what you always thought you would, what you always wanted to be, but couldn't be in Arlington.
There's a line
Virginia.
that you wrote about that I like highlighted in the book, because I just thought it was so like spot on about just being able to like leave that past behind.
Yeah, and no one ever
I
has
did a
like
lot in that book.
Oh, thank you. But it's
I
true.
love
Like
it.
I have friends who I don't know anything about who they were before they rolled up here at 22 after college, and it's fine because none of us really want to talk about whatever it was, like, because now we're this and this is and I think that's really interesting, and I just like to sort of sing that individuality message from the rooftops.
Yeah. Oh, and you do that so well, which is awesome. So Tia, we also wanted to ask you, since we have a lot of librarians tuning in tonight as part of the US Book Show, can you tell us what role libraries played in your development as a reader and a writer? Were they important to you growing up?
Oh, libraries were everything. They were everything. And I don't know if this is how it is with all libraries, or maybe this was a fever dream, but like we would spend summers with my grandmother, at my grandparents' house. My dad, our family was stationed in Germany. And during the summers, we would go back home to DC, and my parents stayed in Germany. And my grandma had all of these library books from Hillcrest Heights Library in Maryland, but they were hers. Like she told me that if you paid a certain amount of money to the library, you could keep the book. Was she just telling me that? Or is that a real thing? Because there were stamps in all her books. There was the like card that goes in it and everything. And I was like, oh my God, Grandma bought all these books from the library. Now I'm looking back and I'm like, was Grandma allowed to take those books?
You may be hearing from the Hillcrest Library.
Yes, exactly. That's right. Your fine is like $50,000.
You might need amnesty, Tia. You might need amnesty.
I think that what do you call it when the time has run out to go after somebody?
Yes, the statute of limitations.
Yeah, it's fast on Grandma's library books. You're okay.
But that's where I first like sort of started understanding them. I was like, it's just something seems so glamorous and cool. Like, first of all, I love that you could see the dates in the stamp, like the dates of all the people that had taken it out is like, history in the book. And just having an unlimited supply of books to read. Like I would go to our library and just nerd out on everything. I remember the Dewey Decimal System. I remember, the microfiche and like copying pages to take home and like study. And my sister was obsessed with soap operas. She only watched 2 of them. Mind you, she's like 8 years old. Again, niche, interest.
Which two?
She watched Guiding Light in General Hospital.
Luke and Laura.
And Laura. I mean, what can you do? But she would go to the library and go to the periodical section, get all of the soap opera digests, like from the past 2 years, read up on all the other shows that she didn't watch. But because of her extensive research in Soap Operas Digest at the library, she could write a dissertation on All My Children, Days Our Lives, all of it. Never seen an episode. But that's what isn't that funny? And that's what I think of when I think of libraries, like just supporting whatever, like, research and interest that you have and making you a smarter, more interesting person.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
Absolutely. Well, Tia, thank you so much. I feel like we are all smarter, more interesting people for having talked to you tonight. This was so lovely. And
Thank you. This was great.
it really was. We're so glad that we managed to work out the connection issues. And Tia, I loved 7 Days in June so much. I listened to it on audiobook, and I never realized how strange it was to listen to sex scenes on audio while you're driving on the highway until I listened to your book. But it was worth it because it was amazing. So to everyone out there, 7 Days in June, it's out in paperback in 2 weeks. You can get it in a hardcover now. You can listen to it on audiobook and be inappropriately listening to things as you're driving along. But no, it's amazing. And Tia, thank you so much for being with us tonight. It was such a pleasure to talk to you.
Yeah, so much fun talking to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It was my pleasure. Bye.
Best of luck.
Good night,
Bye.
Tia.
Bye. All right. Now we are excited to welcome our second guest of this doubleheader, TJ Newman, another author who writes about strong, tough heroes and heroines, but in a completely different way.
You know, we met TJ at the Savannah Book Festival. TJ Newman is a former bookseller turned flight attendant. She worked for Virgin Atlanta and Alaska Airlines from 2011 to 2021. And she wrote most of her debut novel, Falling, on cross-country red-eye flights while her passengers were sleeping. And that's giving me anxiety right this minute.
I know.
Yeah.
Good morning. I don't know how she did that. I was like, oh my gosh, I would never have been able to do that. But anyway, Good Morning America called Falling an unputdownable thriller. USA Today called it a rich and assured debut, and it received glowing recommendations from authors including James Patterson, Janet Ivanovich, and Diana Gabaldon, as well as starred reviews from Publishers Weekly, Booklist, and Library Journal.
I wish she'd gotten some more like lifting.
I know. Yeah.
I know.
Maybe we can.
No one really liked it.
So we loved meeting her at the Savannah Book Festival, and as a former independent bookstore seller, TJ calls Phoenix, Arizona home now.
Yeah, we're so excited to bring her on. Sean, can you bring TJ out?
TJ.
Hey, TJ.
Oh, it's so good to see you guys again. How are you?
Good.
Oh, it's good to
We're
see
happy to
you.
Good to see you. We're so glad you could come on.
I'm so glad I could too. And I have to say, for everybody that's watching, if you don't know these ladies in real life, I have to say that when I went to the Savannah Book Festival, it was my first book festival on, you know, being an author, being there. I didn't know a single soul that was there. I was very nervous. This is my debut novel. This is like, you know, publishing in a pandemic. You don't get to meet people. It's very, you know, isolating. It's just you in your house talking to Zoom. So this was my first like anything. And I was really nervous. And I have to tell you, these 4 ladies just immediately took me under their wings and made me feel so welcome and so comfortable, and I felt like I wasn't alone, and they are as warm as in person as they are here, and I just want to tell you how much that meant to me, how well you made me feel at that event.
Oh my God, I'm tearing up. Thank
We
you.
loved
Thank you so much
meeting
for
you.
saying that. Well, we did, and it didn't hurt that we were huge fans of your book, so we were coming at you as fangirls. But can you start off by telling us a little bit about Falling, which just came out in paperback last week?
Sure. Falling tells the story of Flight 416, a flight from Los Angeles to New York. And what the passengers on board don't know is that just before they took off, the family of their pilot was kidnapped. And he has been told that he can either crash the plane or his family will die. And so the story then follows the valiant, heroic efforts on the ground from the FBI and the family, and the crew and the passengers in the air in their attempts to do the impossible.
It's amazing.
It's such a great concept for a book. And we love to talk about the seeds of inspiration on this show, and especially for books like this. And, you know, as we said, this is so particularly interesting because you wrote it as a flight attendant, which I just cannot imagine like being up in the air and writing this book. I just can't believe that you did that. But I read in an interview with the New York Times that while you were formulating the idea for the book, you asked a pilot colleague of yours, what would you do if your family was kidnapped and you were told that if you didn't crash the plane, they would be killed? And that you knew by the look on his face that you had struck a nerve. And you told the Times he didn't have an answer, and I knew I had a story. So can you talk to us a bit about how you came up with the idea and how you set up pursuing it?
Yeah. What you just said was the story kind of how it went down. The sort of moment that led up to that was I was working a flight because, as you said in my intro, I was a flight attendant for 10 years. And I was working a flight and I was standing at the front of the aircraft doing a security procedure that we call blocking while the pilots are coming in and out of the bathroom. So I'm standing at the front of the plane and I'm staring out at the passengers. And the flight was a red eye. Those were my favorite flights to work. That's how I was able to write on the plane was, I put everybody to sleep and then I went into the galley by myself and got to work. But yeah, so it was a red eye and everyone's asleep, it's dark and it's cold and I'm staring out at the passengers and I kind of have this thought that their lives, my life and my crewmates' lives and all of our lives are in the hands of the pilots, which is fairly obvious, actually. That's not exactly a groundbreaking thought, but it was the first time that I'd kind of considered the flip side of that, which is with that much power and responsibility, how vulnerable does that make the pilots? Yeah. And I just couldn't shake it. And a couple of days later, the concept had solidified into a concrete scenario. And that's when I threw it out to the captain that I was flying with on my next trip, who was a friend of mine. And I just threw that out. Like I said, what would you do? And by the look on his face, I knew that was it. I knew there was a story there because I could see that he was terrified. And once I realized that there wasn't a page in the manual to reference for the situation, that's when I knew I had to write the story to answer the question for myself.
He didn't report you to the TSA?
It's funny. Like I've discovered in this whole process of publishing this book that apparently people don't think like pilots and flight attendants do, which is that we're constantly thinking about what can go wrong. Yeah. It's just, that's how we're trained to think, so that in the unlikely event that something does go wrong, we're ready. We already know. We've already sort of done like a dress rehearsal in our head of this is what I would do. This is what protocol says. This is what I would do under these circumstances. So it really didn't feel weird to be thinking that and asking those questions, because that's what we do. What would you do if? That's just sort of what we do.
I love that you said unlikely event, because it's always like, in the unlikely event of a water landing.
Yeah.
Night tower too.
The flotation device is under your seat.
Yeah.
I have read that you were rejected by 41 agents before one bit. And then that agent went on to sell this book in a 2-book deal for 7 figures. And I think that's kind of a theme of tonight, and something that we've been talking about is like, this is not always an easy road and you never really know what's going to happen. So can you talk a little bit about like that feeling in that moment of having just all of this rejection and sticking with it for so long and then emerging victorious? Like, what was that like?
Well, even the moment leading to that moment was a story. So I'll share it quickly because it's a good story too. Yes, 41 rejections, all of whom said no. Which I'm sure all of us, if you're in this industry, you're used to rejection. You're used to hearing the tough answers. So, and you're also, everyone here I'm sure knows, like, you feel them. Even if you get used to it, you still feel each and every one of them. So it was a tough road, but I just kept going. And one day I was at my, one day I get a phone call from an unidentified LA number. And I, of course, decline it, send it to voicemail because, robocall, someone, a realtor, just send it to voicemail.
Your car, it's time to get your
extended warranty.
Exactly. They can leave a message and I'll delete it later if that's what they want. But, you just block, send to voicemail. So several days later, I'm at my parents' house eating dinner. My phone rings again, unidentified LA number. I don't think anything of it, send it to voicemail. Then something kind of clicks and I'm like, I don't usually get LA numbers. That's kind of weird. Was that the same? Didn't I? So then I go back, and that's when I find the voicemails that I've missed from the one agent who is showing any interest in anything, asking to see the complete manuscript. So of course I start freaking out because I've just blown it. I've sent this agent, voicemail twice. So I'm like, great. I had one shot and I just blew it. So that I frantically try to compose myself and call back. Of course, it goes to voicemail, further reinforcing that I've completely blown my one opportunity. And a couple days go by and I don't really hear. And the whole time it's that should I send an email? Should I call again? Should I do, what do I do? And I had a trip scheduled to go backpacking with a friend of mine, which would mean that we'd be, for a week in the wilderness with no cell phones, completely non-contactable. So I call him and I say, hey, this is TJ Newman. We're playing a little bit of phone tag. I just want to let you know that I'm going to be out of communication for a week. So if I don't hear from you by the end of the night, no worries. I'll circle back, in a week when I'm out of the woods. Just wanted to give you the heads up. He doesn't call back. End up from the airport. We drive up to Northern Arizona, check into our hotel because we're leaving the next morning, go out to dinner, driving back to the hotel. My phone rings and it's that LA number. And I'm like, now, mind you, I haven't told my friend that I'm writing a book. I've told really no one in my life that I'm writing a book, and certainly not that I'm trying to get it published and that I'm querying agents. So we're driving along, my phone rings, and I just pull the car over to the shoulder on the road. And it's dark. We're in the woods. My friend has no idea what's going on. She's just looking around like, what is happening? And I just throw the car in park and I go, this is going to be very strange, but I promise you I will explain everything, but I've got to take this call. And so she's like, okay. So she sits there. I take the call. We have this long conversation. Of course, I'm answering the phone, being like, hi, this is TJ. And she's like, TJ. And I'm sounding all confident, talking about manuscripts and books and all this, completely faking the whole thing because I'm like, the phone is shaking in my hand. I'm so nervous. So we have this call. The call goes amazing. And it was just that moment where that something special just happened. And so I hang up the phone and it's just dead silent in the car. And she looks at me like, what was that? And I just turn to her and I go, I don't know for sure, but I think there's a really good chance my entire life just changed.
Oh, wow.
And it had.
No,
That's amazing.
I love that
Oh my
story.
God. Yeah.
That's incredible.
I feel like you just echoed what Tia said, which is, I think people imagine that we write a book, get an agent, get a book, it's just this one rolls into the next. And we constantly, even after published, have to hang on to this belief that the story we're writing is the story we're supposed to be writing, and to hang on to that kind of flotation device, or to use a plane wreck scenario. But how did it feel to you to constantly be working on this and conceiving this whole plane crash scenario while you're flying, while you're in the air? In other words, did you feel more insecure on your flights as you delved deeper? Or did you, as you mentally went through the worst case scenario, you felt, how did it affect you in the air? It's what I'm trying to ask.
It was a fascinating process in that I can't tell you how many times I would be stuck and I wouldn't know what comes next. And I would just be, just roadblocked, not knowing how to proceed.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Standard operating procedure, right? So
there you go.
Yeah. And it was really fortunate that I got to, I've described it before, and I think this really works in that, it felt like I was writing a movie, but the set was already built. The costumes were made. Everybody was cast and was on set, ready to go every day. They just didn't have lines. We just didn't have a story. So because I was every day in that environment, the story and the lines sort of came out of it. And I can't tell you how many times I would, be thinking about something in the back of my mind, and a pilot that I was with would like say something just like randomly, and I would sort of stop and go, wait, what did you just say?
Oh,
And then
awesome.
it would be like, wait, so if this happens, then you're telling me that this would happen next. And the next thing I know, like my problem has been solved and I know exactly where to go from there.
We were talking about this on the stage in, I think it was Cuyahoga a couple weeks ago, about when you commit to a story, there are it's almost like these metal filaments and you're the magnet. Like if you're paying attention and listening to the pilot or listening to the passengers, sometimes, not always, but sometimes you get what you need if you're paying attention.
Yeah, I totally agree. And especially riding on the plane, like a lot of people often ask, like, how did you, the characters, how did you? And I'm like, I was just character studying all day long. Every day.
I bet.
Flight attendants get paid to people watch. And I just sort of like took it to the next level.
Yeah.
I love it.
That's awesome.
Okay. So TJ, this is your first novel and the reception has been pretty amazing. Does that put pressure on you as you move towards your second novel? And by the way, is there a second novel in the works?
Yes, yes, and yes. So when I was telling the story earlier and I said, my friend didn't even know that I'd written a book, that was my MO with writing Falling. I come from a long pedigree of failure and rejection. Before I decided to try my hand at pursuing this dream, I was pursuing another dream, which was that of being an actor in New York, my Broadway dreams. So I studied musical theater in college, and then I moved to New York after that, which clearly, since we're not discussing what show I'm in, you can guess how well that went. It was not pretty. It did not go well. And it found me moving back to Phoenix, back in with my parents, and then I'm doing the mid-20s. What do I do with my life now? Routine. I'm back living in my childhood home without a job and without a future. What do I do? And my mom said, Changing Hands bookstore, local indie bookstore up the street is hiring. You should get a job there. And so I applied, got a job, and fell in love. And that's kind of, the first step back to where I am now. And that's when I started writing again. That's when I started being creative again. And I really do think that my time at that bookstore is what not only started getting me here in an active way, but brought me back to being the creative person that I knew that I was, that I'd sort of lost track of during my time in New York.
Oh, wow.
And so I started writing there and started doing that. Why did I tell this story? What was the question again? I'm just like...
Second novel.
Oh, I know where I'm going with this. That's why I was like,
writing in secret.
Relate. Yeah, no, it does relate. Bear with me. It's not my strong suit. So when I started writing again at Changing Hands and I started writing stories, I didn't tell anybody. Nobody knew, because my time in New York had shown me that putting yourself out there in front of the world and out in front of your friends and family and saying, I'm taking a creative risk. If it doesn't pan out, it's really embarrassing. Yeah. And I was very much still licking my wounds from my time in New York. So when I started being creative again, because I needed to nurture that part of myself, I did it very privately, very much just for myself. And when I left the bookstore to go fly, and then I had the idea for Falling and I started writing that, I just kept with that whole theme. I didn't tell anyone. Nobody knew I was writing it. Nobody knew it was a dream. Nobody knew that I was doing anything. And by the time that I'd finished the draft, there was literally only a handful of people that knew that I was even doing it. Really just my family, because they were close to staging interventions because they didn't know what I did, locked up in my home alone on my days off. So nobody knew. So that was my MO. And that was the only way that I convinced myself to keep taking risks. And sure, that chapter is terrible, but who cares? No one's ever going to read it. It's never going to leave your computer. So that was the only way that I convinced myself to just keep going. And once it was a full thing, then I just kept going and kept going and kept going to where we are now, which brings me back to your question, Mary Kay. Writing the second book is not quite so secret. It's definitely true. I'm not fooling anybody. It's very much a known thing, and there's expectations, and yeah, they're there. And I'm trying to get myself back to that place, and I'm working every day. And it's one of those things where I just convince myself, I trick myself that I'm the only one that's going to read this, even if that's not the case at all.
I think we all do that too.
We do.
Yeah.
I know I do.
And I honestly think the second book is the hardest, because the first is the one that's been living inside of you for so long, and that you just kind of have to get out on the page. And then the second one, you're just kind of starting from scratch again, and facing all that doubt or all the expectation, or, you know, all those things that are sort of these stumbling blocks set up to make you feel like you might fail, but you won't. This first book was a great achievement. The second book is going to be too. And it's so neat to hear, especially because of, you know, what we value so much here on Friends in Fiction. It's so cool to hear that an independent bookstore played a role in your development as a writer. So we'll talk to you a little bit at the very end about the role libraries played. But TJ, if you wouldn't mind sticking around for a few minutes, we have a little bit more to talk about. But first, a few reminders from us.
Have you bought your coffee from Charleston Coffee Roasters yet? We have, and we've so enjoyed partnering with them. So as a reminder, everyone in our Friends in Fiction community gets 20% off all bagged coffee on their website with code COFFEEWITHFRIENDS. We hope that you'll use this code as the perfect excuse to try their brand new, just released Aquarium Blend. Ooh. And tonight we picked the third of 3 winners of our 3-month Coffee of the Month subscription with Charleston Coffee Roasters. We gave one away in March and one away in April. And tonight's winner, drum roll, Patty, drum roll.
I was so hoping you'd let me do it.
Tonight's winner is Kate Voth of Ewing, New Jersey. Yay! Congratulations, Kate. She was totally randomly picked earlier today, but you should follow her on Instagram. You probably know her from Bookapotamus. She has great bookish content. And don't forget that we have this fabulous book and coffee bundles. You can get one of our books signed, paired with the coffee of your choice. So check them all out at charlestoncoffeeroasters.com. And to all of you who haven't tried their coffee yet, we hope you'll use that 20% off code to do just that. It's the coffee we drink in my house every day. And again, it's Coffee with Friends.
And that's what we drink too. And I have to say how grateful I am to them, because they help keep us on the air.
Yes, they do.
Their sponsorship. So don't forget to join us over on our cool new social platform. It's an app, and it is called Fable, which if I was going to name an app book club, I would call it Fable. So this month you can read Mary Kay's The Homewreckers along with the Fable community, which means this: you get exclusive access to behind the scenes stories, playlists, secrets, and more. You can share your reactions, thoughts, favorite quotes with us and with fellow readers as you read along, and you gain access to special resources you can't find anywhere else. It is just $5 a month to join the Friends and Fiction Behind the Book Club, or you can do an annual premium for $70 a year to join all the book clubs on Fable, including LeVar Burton. So visit fable.co instead of com /friends and fiction to sign up today.
And just another quick reminder about our Writer's Block podcast. We'll always post links under announcements each time a new one drops. A new episode launches each Friday. On the last episode, Ron and Kristin talked to Jane Porter and Megan Crane about prolific writers, friendship, and community in writing. On the episode dropping this Friday, Ron and Kristy talked to Joy Calloway about her novel, The Grand Design, about Dorothy Draper. And next week, Ron and Meg talked to Carter Bays, the co-creator of the wildly popular sitcom How I Met Your Mother, about his debut novel, The Mutual Friend. And Meg has already said that's given her amazing street cred with her kids.
That's awesome.
I can.
That is awesome too. The Mutual Friend. I'm like, why didn't we think of that?
Yeah.
And then when it
Oh,
comes
that's
up on your, I
awesome.
know you have one mutual friend.
I can't wait to hear that podcast. And it's really cool that Meg did it with Ron.
Yeah, I love it.
That's not the norm for us, but she's so good. I mean, she did the pre-show tonight, and I just know it was a great episode. So I can't wait to hear that. So we also want to give a shout out to the Friends in Fiction Official Book Club, headed up by our friends Brenda Gardner and Lisa Harrison. They recently hit 12,000 members. We're so excited. And they'll be joining us on the after show tonight to celebrate and to let you know what they've got coming up in the club.
Okay, TJ, I have one more thing I want to talk to you about because we have so many librarians tuning in tonight. Can you tell us about the impact of libraries and librarians on your life as a reader and as a writer?
Oh, huge. I mean, I wouldn't be sitting here. I wouldn't be doing any of this without libraries. My parents' house was the house I grew up in, was right across the street from the Dobson Ranch branch of the Mesa Public Library. And
you were across the street from the library?
I was walking distance.
Walking
distance. And it was just like, it was everything. It was where, I can remember going there with my parents when they were voting, because it was also, where we voted. I can remember my first library card. It was bright yellow. And I remember signing my name on there so carefully, and the over the years the pen ink like blurred, like everything. A laundry list of just snapshots of images of how that library shaped who I became and what I was. Even, checking out CDs, it showed me the music that I liked and the magazines that my parents wouldn't buy me that I could go read. And then, the books, just everything. I can still walk there in my mind where in the library, what case to go down to get to the babysitter club. And then just seeing all the stacks of them. I mean, it made me the reader that I am, which made me the person that I am, which now is my livelihood and the way that I feel fulfilled as a person.
We asked the right people this question tonight.
I know. I was just going to say,
Awesome.
I cannot think of a better way to end the episode. So, TJ, we just all adore you. We had such a great time with you in Savannah. We're so happy for the success you found with this novel, and we're so excited that people can get their hands on it right now in paperback. It's a great book. We recommend it to everyone, and we are so grateful that you joined us tonight. Thank you so much, TJ.
It was my absolute pleasure. Thank you, guys. This was truly lovely, and I can't wait for the next time we all get together.
I can't wait.
Let's make it soon. Yeah,
exactly. So we'll say see you soon, TJ. All right. Good night. Now, to all of you out there, don't forget that you can find all of our back episodes on YouTube. We are live there every week, just like we are on Facebook. And if you subscribe to our YouTube channel, you will not miss a thing. Plus, you will have access to special short clips. Make sure to stick around for the after show, where we will be chatting with Brenda and Lisa from our book club. And we will also be giving you a little sneak preview of our new novels coming in 2023. Be sure to come back next week, same time, same place, as we welcome Sarah McCoy, Chanel Cleaton, and Christina Lauren in the after show. We'll see you in a minute.
See you in a minute.
Thank you for tuning in. You can join us every week on Facebook or YouTube, where our live show airs on Wednesday nights at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Also, subscribe to our podcast and follow us on Instagram. We're so glad you're here.
All right, everybody, welcome back. Ladies, what a night. Weren't they just great guests?
Oh my gosh. They were such great guests. And these are such great books, and it's awesome.
I feel like I want to write down a lot of what they said.
Yeah.
I feel like they just kind of, it was like the hinges. The hinges.
Dovetailed.
Yeah, that word.
That word.
It almost makes me wish we'd had them on together, because I think that even with the different kinds of books and different different backgrounds that they came at writing from, I just think there was so much overlap in the kind of women they are and the way they persevered against the odds and and didn't listen to the voices that said no. They just said, no, I'm going to do it. This is my dream. This is who I am. And I love that. I feel very inspired.
Those are the writers that inspire me. That's just amazing.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
really wanted to ask Tia for some beauty tips, but I guess that would have been.
I did too. I was looking at her the whole time, like, can you come over here and like do something with me? I mean,
Well, and when she said she was born in 1975, I was like, shut the front door. Like, come on. She looks so good. Yeah. Yes, I could absolutely benefit from her beauty tips. So, two ladies who don't need to benefit from beauty tips because they are so beautiful to begin with are Lisa and Brenda, who run our Friends and Fiction Official Book Club. And I know they're hanging out backstage and we can't wait to talk to them. So, Sean, would you mind bringing Lisa and Brenda on? Hi, ladies.
Hello.
See you.
Hey, guys.
So,
Brenda, are you in the car?
I am in the car.
You're not driving though, right?
No, I'm parked. I had a work event, so I just finished this, and I'm joining you from the car.
Oh my gosh, we love it. Such dedication.
That sounds like our lives.
It really does. Well, ladies, huge congratulations on hitting 12,000 members. Can you even believe it?
Awesome.
No, I can't even imagine that first conversation we had ending up in 12,000. No.
Well, we are just so grateful and so proud of you two. You've done such a phenomenal job with this book club. Brenda, can you tell us a little bit about what the book club is for those watching who may not know?
Sure, I'd be happy to. The book club is a once a month session where we all read a book together each month, and then we bring the author on a Zoom call with us and Facebook Live it so that all of our members can enjoy the conversation with the author and have an opportunity to ask questions in advance and live in the chat. And so it's just it's an in-depth look at each book by, of course, you wonderful ladies, and then we've expanded it to some other authors as well.
Awesome. And I love just real quick, I was going to say, I love that the last 15 minutes of the chat is like a spoiler zone, right? So for people who have read the book, and I think you don't find that a lot on these online book talks, because like usually they're spoiler free, but which is for the purpose of, if we haven't all read it, but I like that you divide your chat so that people can stick around until the spoilers begin happening. And then you really dive deep and you talk about the ending. And I just think it's a unique experience.
Well, thank you. We have been
I love it.
We like to
Yeah. I love as the author being able to talk about spoilers because we get to do that so infrequently where I was like dancing around things and just really be like, go all in, But Lisa, what is the book club up to this month?
Well, we just had a fabulous discussion with Wiley Cash last week. So if you guys missed it, you can check it out on our YouTube page because we are now on YouTube as well. But coming up this month, we're reading an amazing book that has just been hanging out on the New York Times list. Y'all might have heard of it. I think you've heard of it. It's called
Oh, what is that about?
That sounds really interesting. I haven't heard of that book yet, but I'll have to check it out.
I think it's about a homewrecker. I think it's about a homewrecker.
I love it.
That's awesome. Okay, Brenda, what do we have coming up over the next months?
Oh, we have some awesome books coming up. For July, we're reading Book Lovers, and on July 18th, we'll be talking with Emily Henry about it.
Awesome.
In August, we're going to be reading The Younger Wife with Sally Hepworth. That's August 15th. And September 19th, we're doing the book of Eleanor Dare with Kimberly Brock. So we have some awesome books ahead of us in the next few months.
What a great
We
lineup.
also have an awesome happy hour with Ron Block in August too, on August 19th.
Yeah, you don't want to miss those happy hours, y'all. Those are
No, you get
massive
drink
happens.
recipes. You get drink recipes, and they're going to make a cocktail book because I told them to. And then, then you get. I named you PB&J, so I can say there's a cocktail book. And then you get to hear book recommendations from the three of them and whoever their guest is, and all of them get advanced reader copies and can just lay down some great book recs for the rest of the month.
I know, but can we go back to the cocktail thing? Because Lisa at Lisa Gets Lit has like a double meaning.
It really does.
All right.
It really does.
Well, Brenda and Lisa, I can't wait to join you and the book club and talk about the homewreckers.
Oh, we can't wait
are so
either. Looking
excited.
forward to it.
Yeah, we're so looking forward to it. But speaking of things we're looking forward to, with being with the four of you, Brenda and I always want to get the scoop. So we want to know what you guys are up to next year. So Kristy, can you tell us about your book coming out in April?
Yes, I'm so excited. It's called The Summer of Songbirds. I've been pestering these ladies with cover options this week, so I can't wait to show everyone.
It's not a pester. We love weighing in. We all have
I'm like, guys, here are these 11 shades of font color. Now they're all almost exactly the same, but let's deep dive here. That's what
we do.
We dive with pleasure, Kristy.
We dive, we discuss. It's big. But the book is called The Summer of Songbirds, and it is about three best friends who met at a summer camp that is in danger of closing. And so they band together and decide that they're going to save their summer camp. But at the same time, Daphne, who is one of our protagonists, is an attorney, and she finds out something about her best friend Lanier's fiance that is protected by attorney-client privilege. And so she has to decide whether she is going to tell her best friend and get disbarred. She's a single mother, so it's a really big decision, even bigger than normal maybe. Or if she's going to let Lanier, who is her best friend, marry this man, knowing what she knows about him. But Lanier has a secret of her own that if Daphne finds out, which maybe she does, maybe she doesn't, I can't really say, would change the way that she felt about the entire thing.
Ooh. You've already figured out how to talk about it.
I know. I'm impressed.
I know.
I have not figured out how to talk about it yet, so I'm going to try. Mine comes out on May 9th, and May 9th of next year, obviously, 2023. And it is called The Secret Book of Flora Leah. And guess what? That is the first time I've been allowed to say the title. So May 9th, The Secret Book of Flora Leah comes out. It is about a secret story world created by two sisters named Hazel and Flora. And that secret fairy tale solves the mystery of the youngest sister's disappearance from the countryside of Oxford, England in 1940. And I have so much more to say, but Kristin, how about you?
Well, I think 3 or 4 weeks after your book, Patty, my book will come out. I think I'm early June. And it's called The Paris Daughter. I love that we're April, May, June. I think that's perfect. So I'm so excited. It's the story of, and I also haven't totally figured out my pitch yet. I think, it takes reading it 5 million times through copy editing. When you're like, oh, that's what it's about. That's what it's about. Now, I'm not totally through yet, but it's the story of two mothers and two daughters in World War II Paris. An Allied bomb that falls where it shouldn't in a residential Paris suburb on a sunny Sunday, and a mystery that kicks off when not all of the people in a picturesque French bookstore survive the blast. And then the story picks up in New York City in 1960, when a chance encounter with one of the mothers of those two daughters sets the question of what happened that tragic day spinning back into motion again. So that's kind of the short little elevator pitch for The Paris Daughter. And how about you, Mary Kay? Do you have anything on tap for 2023?
Usually I have a summer book, but I won't have a summer book in 2023.
How is summer going to begin?
Yes, summer won't ever start in 2023.
I mean, the three of us have spring and summer books, but summer's actually not going to start. I don't know what to do.
It will start with the paperback of the Homewreckers.
Okay. Thank goodness. Thank you for clearing that up.
I will start in late April of 2023. It will start with the paperback of the Homewreckers. Then we will flash forward to late September with another Christmas novella that I am still working on it. The title is what we in publishing call TK, which means to come.
Well, why do we use the word K for come?
I don't make these rules, Patty.
I know.
I've
want
never
to-
understood that.
I can explain it because in journalism, if you plug in a TK,
Yeah.
that's a very uncommon letter combination.
Right,
so you can
right.
search your document for TK, but if you searched a document for TC, a lot of words would come up. So TK is something that'll just bring up the blanks. Yep.
Yeah. So the title is TK, but it starts in the same fictional North Carolina mountain time as the Santa suit. But this time the story involves a woman whose family owns a Christmas tree farm. And they have, for the past 30 years, they have cut their trees in November and trucked them up to a Christmas tree stand in Greenwich Village, where they sell Christmas trees. And this year, your protagonist, Carrie, gets guilt-tripped into going along to sell trees and finds holiday love and all the things in Greenwich Village.
So exciting.
You read such a good summary that I feel like I've read the book. Like, I'm so excited.
I'm so excited for this one. Well, we are so excited. I know we'll all join the book club next year to talk about these books. Brenda and Lisa, you're so kind to always host us and give readers kind of the behind the scenes version of our books. And, I was thinking in the pre-show, Andrew and Meg and Ron were talking about how that road kind of goes both ways. It's, it's the readers to the writers and the writers to the readers. And, and I think nowhere is that better exemplified than in our relationship with the two of you. I think the two of you began as readers of us and supporters of us, and you've become two of our dear friends. You've become such an integral part of our community. You've done such incredible work with the book club. And you've, in addition to the direct connection we have with readers through Friends in Fiction, I think the two of you are really, for us and for all the authors you feature, a real pipeline between the readers and the writers. You're such an incredible part of this community, and we're so grateful to you. So congratulations on the continued success of the book club. Congratulations on 12,000.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for everything you do.
Thanks, guys.
Well, we feel so deeply lucky and thankful to be working with you. So
we are lucky. We're the lucky ones. We adore you guys so much. So thank you for letting us be a part of this.
I can't wait to talk to you guys about the homewreckers.
I know it's going to be
I
so
can't
much
wait.
fun. I cannot
I think
wait.
I'm going to make a home wrecker cocktail. I wore a home wrecker
need
dress to your launch party, but I'm going to do a home wrecker cocktail.
I think we've talked about at every event how you guys are an example of, at Friends in Fiction, don't volunteer, like, unless you want to be left in charge of this like monstrous project that will like consume a large portion of your life. So you guys are like the cautionary tale / amazing example that we use.
I'll be careful what you
So to all of you out there, consider that your warning, and don't forget to join the Friends in Fiction official book club if you haven't already. As you can tell, they just are doing such amazing things over there. So everybody, this has been such a great night, and we will see you next week, same time, same place, Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern, as we welcome Sarah McCoy, Chanel Cleaton, and Christina Lauren. Have a great night, everybody.
Happy Memorial Day weekend.